Okay, thank you, and welcome everybody to the Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee of Monday, 26th of January 2026. I am Councillor Pete Kilbane. I am chairing this meeting because we do have apologies for absence. Councillor Douglas has submitted her apologies. She's been substituted by Councillor Lomas, and I am chairing as Vice Chair in Councillor Douglas's stead. We have no other apologies for this evening's meeting. Do we have any declarations of interest in the matters at hand tonight? No? Okay. Is the committee happy to approve the minutes of the meeting of the Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee held on the 1st of September 2025?
Yep.
I remember it well.
I think we'll take that as minutes approved. We have no members of the public registered to speak today. We do have, later on in the meeting, agenda item 8, we do have some restricted papers. Will any members seek to discuss any of the content of those papers when we get to that item?
No.
No? Okay. If it becomes apparent to members that they do wish to discuss any of the content, then we will need to move into private session because potentially staff could be identified in the section. Okay, so moving on then, first to agenda item number 6, workforce profile as at Q3. Helen, hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is one of our regular reports up until the end of 31st of December. So as usual, I've presented to you the Council's workforce profile, which includes our headcount, our full-time equivalent, our new starters, resignations and leavers, including some of our equalities information. I won't go through all of the details. I'll just give you some edited highlights. One of the things that you'll see is we've got slightly more starters than leavers. We are continuing to obviously recruit as an organisation. We are very successful in getting funding, so that is where we do a number of temporary contracts. Therefore, we have more starters, and we have temporary contracts as a result of funding, which is there. We also saw the Housing and Communities Directorate. We had a number of staff who were TUPE'd in from Changing Lives, which is where our numbers also increased. On the whole, we're remaining relatively static. I know some of the figures say for headcount and FTE that we're increasing, but we also have colleagues on a continual basis where they may reduce their hours and then we may recruit to their additional hours again, but it's all about fluctuation and demand. And you'll see later in the report where we talked about cost control measures at paragraph 10, we continue every time there is a vacancy to establish whether that vacancy needs to be filled. We obviously need to fill frontline roles to make sure that they remain operative, remain to be able to fulfil our services and be operationally successful. But we do look at being creative that don't necessarily recruit on a like-to-like basis. As I've always said, we look at apprentices and we do look at well-being as well, because there's no good just removing a post if that puts extra pressure on our employees and work becomes excessive. We do need to make sure that we balance all of that out. Sickness absence figures are remaining relatively static and stable for the year, and we are actually below the standard for the CIPD level now. However, comparing with our local partners and our local authorities in the area, we don't all look at sickness absence figures in exactly the same way. So that does mean that we can't compare on a like-for-like basis. And in some of our smaller directorates, a couple of long-term absences can distort some figures there. In terms of discussions, we on a monthly basis, I talk to other HR directors across the region in terms of the Yorkshire and Humber area, and we've all experienced very similar high periods of absence during November and December, which is not going to be unusual. I think if you speak to anybody, there's been a high amount of infections, etc. So we will see that data coming through over the next couple of months when we next report for year end, but it may well balance itself out. In terms of equality profiling, we are largely comparable for last year. We have done yet another exercise around our workforce to declare, but it still remains that we can't do that on a mandatory basis to update all their sensitive information. I've merged this report. I always said that we'd do retentions as being one retention payment to one employee. Since we last reported in June, retention payments for the benefit of the committee and those listening, where we apply an up to 10% additional substantive salary, and that's where it's being market tested and there is a particular need. Again, I won't put the details on because that would make the individual identifiable, but it was just one job holder in grade 12 within there. I've also marked at paragraph 16, this committee approved the market supplement in June 2025 for the Corporate Director of Children and Education Services, and I will present an update on that when we have got the pay award from the National Joint Council of Employers. There's no particular date on that as yet, but it will be backdated to the 1st of April. And I will align that to one of our regular meetings when there needs to be an update on that in line with the agreements around that report and decision. And I'm just looking for recommendations, Chair, of just to note the workforce profile, but I'm happy to take any comments or any questions.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, just on the retention payment. It says obviously 12 months unless stated otherwise, and is stated otherwise, so it's 2 years. Is there any rationale for either point? I think it's many questions why, if we have a 1 year window, what is the reasoning for it, and why would you then extend that to 2 years?
We did it on a business case purpose. When we brought the details here, we said we would do it for 2 years. So we can go beyond that. It's exceptional circumstances. We discussed it with our trade unions and we have done that before, so this wasn't just a precedent set.
It's good politicians answer, but I was getting why are you getting to 2? If we feel like we want to retain the person, it feels like it would be an ongoing need. So you would do it by year and then renew it every year, or you would say 4 years or 5 years.
Well, we said we'd renew it year by year. Circumstances might change from the individual as well, but we'll renew it and we'll look at it over the 2 years.
And I guess it depends upon the business case, which frankly I can't remember. So, yeah. Okay. Any more questions or comments? Yeah, Councillor.
This is more general. I think as I was looking through it, is obviously the profile is relatively static.
Okay.
It's good to see that we are seeing movement in number of BME staff.
Very slowly, but yeah.
That's quite considerable. It's about 5% in that period. Well, 3%. 3% in 3 years is actually quite a lot. So that
we've done a lot of promotion in terms of the reasons why and why we collect the information. But again, as I say, we can't do it on a mandatory basis, but people are coming forward.
But I think it's just that general point about with it being so static. Are we happy with it being static? Which I assume we're probably not. And in which case, what steps do we need to start doing rather than just noting it every time and going, it's pretty much the same?
We do recruitment. We work with Indeed and they promote it out, and we work with a lot of our local businesses and go to the job centre, etc., so they can touch all the areas of our community, but we still have to employ the right person for the job. So
just thinking going forward, whether we pick 1 or 2 and say, well, the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to really focus on, we want to see, put targets in and go, actually, we're going to increase. But again, 4%, we'll increase disability by 4%. Just
we haven't set targets specifically, again, because we don't have to have that information from employees. So yeah, it can't be mandatory from an applicant point of view or from an employee point of view. But we are seeing more confidence coming through the staff networks, which is really good. And actually, they're really strong, which is brilliant. We've just had a session today, actually, from the disabled staff network.
I think it's a really interesting point that you raised, Councillor. So, I think with the, if you look at something like ethnicity, so there is a slow and steady progress. So, you know, a percentage point increase in black minority ethnic staff members over the last 3 years. But it does slowly start to make a difference, doesn't it? Slowly starts to make a change. And, you know, similarly with the age profile, it's dropped very slightly, but it is going in the right direction. I guess the question is, what can we do realistically to actually concentrate on particular areas, which I think is probably not something for discussion in this meeting, because obviously it's just been brought forward now, but I think that will certainly be worth investigating within the limitations of obviously people. There's no mandatory requirements around it, but you know, if you've got some form of program, then it can aid progress there, I think, because it's good to see that progress, but we're still below certainly percentages for York and just below for the public sector. So, you know, it's a question of no complacency, I think, is probably the best way of describing it in terms of if we had some targets to aim at. Okay, I've just got one question, Helen. You know, we are becoming a smaller council, but the head council from 24-25 to Q3 25-26. How do you explain that? If we're becoming a smaller council, how come we've got more people?
In terms of headcount, I think I mentioned where people reduce their hours, we sometimes still need those hours. So for one job, you may well have 2 people filling those, so therefore your headcount is a bit bigger. And also our headcount in terms of funding, we've had we've been fortunate to be able to get funding in city development, education, housing. So when we have those, it's not increasing our headcount, but it is increasing our headcount, but it's not necessarily from our revenue, it's from specific funding there. So we won't not do the opportunities of doing those.
So that includes all the posts that are externally financed?
It does indeed, yes. So, capital and any grant funding, yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Councillor.
Just maybe think about that as we talk about getting smaller, looking at the medium-term financial strategy for the next 2 years beyond the year, we look likely to get considerably smaller. I wonder what we were talking then about what we do in terms of pushing the envelope and making changes that as we lose staff, if you're going to lose 10-15% staff, what steps can we make sure to make sure it doesn't make us less diverse in terms of that?
It's really, really interesting question. Yes, I think it's a case of just making sure that we do everything that we're doing at the moment, but you would never reduce the headcount based on individual profiling, things like that.
We're aware of trying to think. We probably know the areas where you're likely to lose more. The discretionary services are going to be under more pressure. So
yeah,
doing the workforce profiling and that going, is that likely to have a disproportionate impact on?
I don't know at this point in time.
Me neither. I'm just thinking out loud.
Worth exploring. And I think the other thing, of course, is let's keep on getting that external funding.
Yeah.
You know, that's increasingly important, isn't it? Okay, that's great. Thank you, Helen. So the recommendation, which is at paragraph 20, we are asked to note the workforce profile provided in Annex 1 and the report, including addition of retention and payment details of paragraph 16. Everybody okay to note the report?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Item number 7 is the work plan. Helen again.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, my machine's just shut down. So we have, sorry. Thank you. Can I cut your shoulder? We have, we've got February, we've just got the redundancy, retirement and settlement agreements, and the same again for April. But if there is any other reports that come through, obviously we'll put them on the plan. At this point in time, I don't think there's a great deal for February, but I'll obviously assess that situation when it comes nearer the date.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Everybody okay with the work plan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the final item on our agenda, which is redundancy pension and exit discretions expenditure. And just to remind members, if you do want to talk about the restricted annex, that's fine, but we will have to move into private session for. Okay, Helen, over to you again.
Okay, so this is again one of our standard reports, and just as a reminder, in terms of redundancies and pensions, the council will have done everything possible, and there's no additional payments that have been made on anything that we've done. You will see at paragraph 9, I've explained that we've had 3 new flexible retirements and 3 redundancies, of which 2 payments of redundancies have had pension payments. Our redundancy payments have totalled a value of just over 96,786. And that is for the 3 redundancies in total, and then of which there was 2 redundancy payments had pensions, and those pension payments were of 243,693. That was to the two individuals, and they're based purely on the LGPS, which is the Local Government Pension Scheme regulations, where somebody is over 55 and made redundant, that they get access to their pension as well. And that is standard. That is not something that the council makes any kind of discretionary payment to. That is just simply in the regulations. Just for committee members' information, this is something that is due to change in terms of the age. It will increase in 2028. It will go to 58 rather than being 55. And obviously I'll bring some details around that when that is all in force. But at this point in time, in terms of the details that have been presented to you, there is nothing in terms of additional discretionary payments that have been made. It's all based on entitlements.
Okay, thank you. So questions and comments, Councillor Lomas.
Can you just confirm that where we have made redundancies, that there has been attempts made to seek alternative roles for people in the organisation before considering them for redundancy payments? Absolutely,
that has been done, and it's something that we do for all officers who are in scope for redundancy, and that isn't just in their notice period. The minute that we know that there is a potential redundancy, we continue to work with them, and for the 3 individuals that have received a redundancy payment, we worked with the unions and we worked with the individuals to make sure that we considered, and unfortunately in this situation there was no suitable alternatives.
Okay, Councillor Moss, can you follow that up?
Well, just I think it's helpful as well for any members of the public who might be watching this later to confirm that where we do pay pension payments for those employees over 55, they don't go to the person, they go to the pension scheme, so that the person can access their pension as if they had worked until their ordinary retirement age. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions or comments? No? Okay, so in terms of recommendations, this committee is asked to note the expenditure and cases that have been approved, so that we've got an overview of expenditure. Is everybody okay to note the expenditure and cases approved? Yeah, thank you. Okay, and that concludes the business of the Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Helen, for all the work that you've been doing. Thank you for your contributions, members, and goodbye to the public. Thank you all.